At my engagement party, my dad demanded I give my $60,000 savings to my dropout brother, or the wedding was off. When I refused, he slapped me in front of everyone. I stood up, shaking but calm, and said, "You just lost everything." Then Derek's father stepped in with a court order. My name is Alyssa Monroe. I'm 28 years old, a software engineer living in Portland, Oregon. For most of my life, I've played by the rules. I planned ahead, stayed focused, and avoided drama. That's just how I was raised, or at least how I thought I was supposed to be. But if you ask me now, after everything that's happened, I'd say I was raised to be the backup plan. The reliable one. The one who'd never fight back. I met Derek 3 years ago at a collaborative tech architecture event. He's an architect, smart, warm, and deeply thoughtful. We hit it off instantly over a shared love of smart home automation. What started as project talk over coffee turned into long walks, late-night coding and blueprint sessions, and eventually love. We grew into a rhythm that felt easy and natural, and after a few years, we were ready for the next step: marriage. We weren't rich, but we were responsible. I'd been saving since I was 19, slowly building a personal fund that started with leftover college money and grew over time with every bonus and investment win. By the time Derek proposed, I had saved $60,000. We planned a modest wedding, nothing flashy, just meaningful. We also agreed to use the rest for a down payment on a home. It felt like everything I had worked so hard for was finally coming together. Our engagement party was held on a clear Saturday evening on a rooftop overlooking the city. Strings of soft lights hung between the railings, and the view of downtown Portland was stunning. Our closest friends and some extended family mingled, holding glasses of wine and nibbling appetizers. Derek stood beside me, his arm gently around my back, smiling like there was no place else he'd rather be. Then my father tapped his glass with a fork. Everyone turned. He stood there, stiff in his dark gray suit, my mother Janice by his side, her smile tight and unreadable. "May I have your attention?" my father began, holding his wine like he was giving a boardroom presentation. "We're here to celebrate Alyssa and Derek's engagement. Congratulations to both of you." There was polite applause and some cheers. I smiled, feeling a touch nervous. Dad wasn't exactly known for sentimental speeches, but maybe he was about to surprise me. He didn't. "I'd also like to make an announcement," he said, his voice turning formal. "After much discussion, Janice and I have decided that the $60,000 fund Alyssa has been saving will be redirected to support her younger brother Brandon in starting his new business." For a moment, I didn't process what he said. I laughed, just a soft chuckle. "That's a joke, right?" My dad's face didn't change. "No, Alyssa. Your brother has a vision. He's launching a recording studio, and this is his moment. You and Derek are both doing well financially. You don't need that money the way he does." I blinked at him. "That money is mine," I said calmly. "I've saved for years. I worked for it. You can't just decide to give it to Brandon." My mother spoke for the first time, quietly but firmly. "Sweetheart, your father, and I believe this is what's fair. You've always had more. Brandon deserves a chance." Brandon stood at a nearby table, arms crossed, face smug like this had already been settled. "It's not like you can't spare it," he added. "You're not struggling." My chest tightened. "That's not the point," I said, turning to them all. "The point is I planned. I sacrificed. I didn't blow through my college fund or bounce from job to job. I stayed steady. That fund is legally in my name." Dad stepped closer, his voice rising slightly. "You're being selfish. This is about helping family." "No," I said firmly, my voice shaking. "This is about control." And then it happened. He raised his hand and slapped me, hard, across the face. Gasps echoed. I stumbled a step back, stunned. My cheek burned and tears stung my eyes, not from pain, but from the shock. Derek moved instantly, stepping between me and my father, his voice low but full of rage. "You just hit your daughter," he said. In front of everyone. The room had gone silent. A waiter near the bar picked up a phone. I heard him say, "Yes, we need police at the Highline Rooftop Lounge. There's been an assault." My mother didn't speak. She just stood beside my father, looking down at her wineglass like none of it concerned her. Brandon looked startled for once, unsure of what to say. Minutes later, 2 police officers arrived. They asked me what happened. I told them the truth. A guest stepped forward, confirming it. And just like that, my father was led out of the restaurant in handcuffs. I stood frozen, everything numb. My engagement party had just turned into a public arrest scene. Derek took my hand, held it tightly. My mother and brother left quietly, without a word. That night, Derek and I sat in our apartment in silence. I still hadn't processed it all. One minute, I was celebrating my future, and the next, I was pressing charges against my father. But somewhere deep inside, I felt something shifting. Not fear, not sadness. Clarity. For the first time, I realized this wasn't just a moment. It was the beginning of a war I never asked for, but one I would fight with every ounce of truth I had. And I wasn't backing down. The days after the engagement party felt like I was walking through fog. My cheek had healed quickly, but the bruise on my heart stayed. I kept asking myself the same question over and over. How did it come to this? My own father, the man who once taught me how to ride a bike and drilled the value of discipline into me, had publicly humiliated and assaulted me for money. Not for survival, not for justice. For Brandon. And my mother, she didn't lift a finger to stop it. She stood silently beside him, agreeing without ever opening her mouth. That silence hurt more than anything. A few days after the arrest, I made the decision to press charges. I thought it would give me some peace, some sense of justice. What I didn't expect was how quickly my parents retaliated. Just when I started to breathe again, a thick envelope arrived in my mailbox. It was from a law firm, Patterson and Wilkes. I didn't even open it at first. My hands shook as I stared at it. Derek was the one who finally took it, sat with me on the couch, and read it out loud. It was a lawsuit. My parents were suing me for the $60,000. Their claim? That the money had only ever been intended for educational use, and that I had no right to keep it now. They argued that I was misusing it, and that it rightfully belonged to the family, specifically to Brandon, so he could have a fresh start. I was speechless. I had received full legal control of that account when I turned 18. It was never labeled as college only. In fact, my dad had told both me and Brandon years ago that we could use the money however we wanted once we became adults. But of course, that was when he thought I'd follow his script. Brandon didn't. He'd burned through his college fund within 2 years. He went to a music school in Los Angeles, dropped out halfway, and then tried everything from streaming to producing his own podcast. He bought high-end gear, a new car, even rented out a recording space for 6 months. It all fell apart, like it always did with him. But now that I had managed to build something stable, they wanted my savings too. I knew I couldn't fight this alone. That's when I met Carmen Ellis, my lawyer. Sharp, calm, and no nonsense, she reviewed all the documents I brought and looked at me with absolute confidence. "They don't have a case," she said plainly. "This account was gifted to you, with no written restrictions. You've used it responsibly. Verbal promises don't override that." That should have made me feel safe. But it didn't. Because this wasn't just about the money. It was personal. They were trying to break me, wear me down until I gave in. But I wasn't going to. The court process started quickly. Filings, responses, document requests, it all came like waves. Every time I walked into the courtroom and saw my father sitting beside Brandon, both of them stone-faced, it chipped away at something inside me. My mother came to every hearing, always dressed in beige, always quiet. I couldn't tell if she was ashamed or if she just didn't care enough to show emotion. Brandon, on the other hand, was full of smirks. He looked proud of himself, like this was some kind of game he was winning. But when he took the stand during one of the hearings, that confidence cracked. Carmen asked him directly, "Brandon, did you use your educational fund exclusively for school expenses?" He paused. "Not all of it." Carmen nodded. "So you dropped out of college and then used the remaining amount on music equipment, car payments, and personal projects?" "That's not illegal," he said quickly. No, it's not, Carmen agreed. Which is why it's interesting that you're now suing your sister for using her own fund responsibly. He didn't have an answer. The judge was quiet but watchful. I saw the expression on her face shift slightly as Brandon stumbled over his responses. I could feel the courtroom turning. They were starting to see it. That this wasn't about fairness. It was about manipulation. It was about punishing me for not failing. But things weren't done yet. One evening, I got a call from my cousin, Elise. "Hey, Alyssa," she said gently. "I just wanted to ask, is it true that the wedding's off?"
What?
No, I said, confused. Why would you think that? I got an email.
From you, I thought.
It said you and Derek broke up because he cheated and the wedding's been canceled. My chest tightened. I never sent that, I whispered. Within an hour, 3 more people reached out with similar messages. Emails claiming the wedding was off, citing personal problems, even screenshots of supposed text messages between me and Derek. Some were signed with my name. One even had our engagement photo attached. I checked my sent folder. Nothing. Someone had made a fake account pretending to be me. The worst part? It didn't stop there. Derek came home that night with a strange look on his face. "You're not going to believe this," he said. "Brandon sent me photos. Fake ones." My heart dropped. "Photos." He nodded grimly. "Photoshopped images of you with some guy. Badly done. But the implication was that you were cheating." He handed me his phone and I stared at the images. It was me, or at least my face, pasted onto a woman hugging someone in a bar. It would have been laughable if it weren't so deeply disturbing. "They're desperate," I said quietly. "They're trying to make you doubt me. Trying to make everyone turn against me." But Derek just pulled me close and kissed my forehead.
"Let them try," he said.
"We're stronger than that." We made a decision that night. We weren't taking any more chances. We hired professional security for the wedding. Sent them photos of my parents and Brandon. Strict instructions. None of them were allowed in. And as I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, I knew this story wasn't over. They weren't just trying to take my money anymore. They wanted my peace, my name, my life. But I had something they would never have. The truth. The week leading up to the wedding was supposed to be exciting, filled with final touches, fittings, laughter, and the usual chaos that comes with planning a major life event. Instead, it was tense, quiet, and covered in shadows I couldn't shake. Every day brought a new reminder that my family had declared war on me, and they weren't done yet. We had hired 2 professional security guards from a private agency in Portland. They were thorough and took the threat seriously. We gave them clear instructions and physical photos. Do not allow Richard Monroe, Janice Monroe, or Brandon Monroe anywhere near the venue. I hated that it had come to this, but I wasn't taking any chances. Not after the fake emails, the photoshopped images, and the courtroom games. Still, I couldn't help but feel like something else was coming. The night before the wedding, I barely slept. I kept going over every detail, every vulnerability. The entrance gate, the side path near the kitchen, the service exit. Derek told me to breathe, to trust that we'd done everything we could.
He was right.
But I couldn't shake the feeling that they'd try something anyway. The wedding was set in a beautiful garden venue just outside the city. Quiet, private, and exactly what we had imagined. Nothing extravagant. Just soft lights, wooden chairs, and flowers that Derek and I had chosen ourselves. It felt personal.
Ours.
I was in the bridal suite, dressed and ready, trying to keep my hands from shaking. My best friend, Elena, sat beside me, fixing the edge of my veil. "This is your moment, Alyssa," she said, her voice gentle. "You've earned every second of it." And just as I nodded, trying to hold in tears, there was a knock on the door. One of the guards stepped in quietly. "Miss Monroe," he said carefully. "We've detained someone trying to enter through the back gate." My stomach dropped.
"Who?"
"Brandon," he replied.
He was alone,
carrying a large tote bag. When we searched it, we found a bottle of black ink, several rags, and gloves. The breath caught in my throat. "He was going to ruin the dress," I whispered. "Yes, ma'am," the guard said. "Would you like us to contact the sheriff?" I stared at the floor for a few seconds. Every part of me wanted to scream, to have him arrested, to make him answer for everything he'd done. But it was my wedding day. I wasn't giving him that power. No, I said finally. Just remove him. Make sure he's nowhere near this place. And please double-check the perimeter. I don't want any surprises. The guard nodded and left. Elena looked at me in disbelief.
He brought ink, she said.
He actually planned to destroy everything. I sat down slowly. They've already tried everything else. When they couldn't take the money, they went after my name. When that didn't work, they tried to break me and Derek apart. And now this. Elena took my hands in hers. You didn't let them win. The ceremony began 15 minutes later. My Uncle Mark, my mom's older brother, walked me down the aisle. He had been one of the few relatives who stood by me through all of this. As I walked down the path lined with fresh white petals, I saw Derek standing at the altar, eyes on me, smiling like I was all he saw. And for a moment, I forgot all the pain, all the betrayal, all the scars. It was just me and him, under the sky, surrounded by people who truly cared. We said our vows, honest, personal words about loyalty, partnership, and never giving up on each other. We didn't mention the past. We didn't need to. Everyone who mattered already knew. When we kissed, the crowd erupted into cheers. My heart was full. Not just because I was now married to the love of my life, but because I had made it. I had survived the storm without letting it break me. The reception was magical. Soft music played. There were heartfelt speeches, dancing, laughter. My cousin Elise gave a toast and said, Alyssa didn't just stand her ground. She built a new one. I'll never forget that. We danced like nothing else mattered. Derek held me close, whispering, This is the start of everything. Later that night, as we left the venue under a sky full of stars, I turned back one last time. The lights were still glowing, people still smiling, and it hit me, Brandon didn't get to take that away. My parents didn't win. They couldn't touch this part of my life. I had shielded it, protected it, with every ounce of strength I had. A few weeks later, we settled into our new place, a small but smartly designed house just outside the city. Solar panels, high-efficiency appliances, and a backyard that caught the sunset just right. We used the rest of the $60,000 fund exactly as we planned. We built a life, quiet, stable, and free from chaos. I thought things might finally calm down, until I ran into my cousin Rachel at the grocery store. Hey, she said carefully after a quick hug. Did you hear about Brandon's big wedding? I raised an eyebrow.
No.
We're not exactly talking. She looked uneasy. Your parents took out a private loan. Like, a large one. They're throwing a massive wedding for him. Grand Oak Ballroom. Out-of-state catering. Designer suits. It's kind of a thing. I let out a quiet laugh. So, they went into debt for that? Rachel nodded. They didn't invite you, I guess?
No.
But I'm not surprised. Would you have gone if they did? I looked at her, calm and unshaken. He tried to ruin my wedding with a bottle of ink.
So no.
I wouldn't have gone. She didn't say anything after that. Just nodded and walked away. That night, I looked around our little home. Photos on the wall, books stacked by the window, a note Derek had left on the fridge telling me to eat the last slice of cake. I wasn't rich. I didn't have my parents' approval or some big dramatic reconciliation. But I had peace. And for the first time in my life, I knew that was enough. A few months passed, and life finally started to feel normal. Peaceful even. Derek and I fell into our rhythm. Early mornings with coffee on the porch, long days filled with work we both loved, quiet dinners with music playing low in the background. We were building something real, something strong. And for once, it didn't feel like something could crash through the walls at any moment. The storms had passed, or so I thought. Brandon's wedding happened about 4 months after ours. We didn't get an invitation, of course. Not that I expected one. But I heard plenty about it. Through texts, calls, whispers at family functions I wasn't invited to. I didn't need to see pictures. I already knew the story. My parents, still wounded by the fallout from my wedding, had decided to go all in on his. It was held at the Grand Oak Ballroom, one of the most expensive venues in Portland. Champagne towers, custom lighting, flown-in musicians, even a drone show. I heard they hired a private chef from California and ordered personalized gold-trimmed invitations. All of it paid for with a loan that, according to my cousin Elise, had already started causing financial strain. They're pretending like the past year didn't happen, she told me over coffee one weekend. Like none of the courtroom stuff, or the slap, or the ink at your wedding ever existed. They're building a fantasy, I said. One big enough to hide all the cracks. Elise looked at me. Some people think they're trying to erase you. Replace your story with Brandon's. That didn't hurt the way it once might have. It didn't surprise me either. If there was one thing I'd learned through all of this, it was that people who refuse to take accountability will go to any length to control the narrative. They'll rewrite the past if it means saving face. But I didn't care anymore. Let them rewrite it. Let them decorate it with gold-trimmed lies. I knew the truth. So did the people who mattered. What surprised me more was what happened after the wedding. Slowly, things started unraveling. A few of my aunts and uncles, people who had stayed silent during the lawsuit, started speaking up. They didn't like how my parents had treated me. Some even admitted they hadn't attended Brandon's wedding because of it. My father, from what I heard, was furious. Not because he missed me, but because the image he tried so hard to protect was starting to crack anyway. My mother remained quiet. I didn't hear a word from her, not a message on my birthday, not a holiday card. At first, that silence stung. I still sometimes caught myself wondering if she'd ever reach out. But then I'd remember the look on her face that night on the rooftop, the one where she let it all happen. I didn't need people in my life who only showed love when it was easy. One afternoon, while Derek and I were rearranging the guest room, just in case friends or family ever visited, I looked around and smiled. There were pictures from our honeymoon in Costa Rica on the wall. A small bookshelf we built ourselves. A candle flickering on the windowsill. Nothing fancy, but it felt like home. Derek laughed as he wrestled with the legs of the bed frame. So, he said, wiping sweat from his forehead, who do you think will be our first guest? I paused. The question caught me off guard. For a second, my mind flashed to the past, my parents, Brandon, holidays that now seemed like another life. Someone who truly cares about us, I finally answered. That's who I want in this house. He smiled and reached for my hand. That's all we need. The longer I stayed away from the chaos, the clearer everything became. My parents hadn't been trying to help Brandon. They were trying to preserve a lie. A lie where I was the villain for saying no. For not sacrificing myself for someone else's poor choices. For holding my ground. And you know what? I didn't regret it. I didn't regret pressing charges. I didn't regret fighting the lawsuit. I didn't regret hiring security or cutting ties. Because I had protected something more important than a fund or a wedding. I had protected myself. There was no grand apology. No tearful reunion. Just silence. But in that silence, I found space to heal.
To breathe. To grow.
Some people think revenge is about getting back at someone. But for me, it was about not letting them win. Not letting them change me. Not letting their bitterness take root in my future. My revenge was this life. My revenge was waking up each morning in a home I helped build, beside a man who never wavered. It was knowing that I never stooped to their level, never gave them the chaos they wanted. My boundaries became my power. And now, when people ask what happened, I don't tell them the whole story. Not unless they really want to know. I just smile and say, I chose peace. Because that's what I did. I chose to walk away from a family who couldn't celebrate my happiness unless they controlled it. I chose a new path, one filled with truth, respect, and love that didn't come with strings. In the end, I didn't need revenge the way they expected. I didn't ruin Brandon's wedding. I didn't fight fire with fire. I didn't send emails or drag their names through the mud. I just told the truth.
And I lived.
That was enough. That was everything. During our honeymoon, my mother-in-law pulled off a shocking betrayal by stealing my $25,000 diamond necklace. When we got home and I asked her about it, she exploded in anger. She slapped me hard and pushed me against the wall. To my surprise, my husband stood by her side. Heartbroken, I left the house, planning my revenge. They had no idea I had a big surprise coming that would change everything. My name's Lisa, and I'm a 30-year-old software developer living in San Francisco. When I think back to my life, I can still remember the excitement of my wedding day, the hope I felt for the future, and the way my heart swelled with love for my college sweetheart, James. We had met during our university years and bonded over late-night study sessions and shared dreams of what our lives would look like. I thought I had found my perfect partner. But as the saying goes, the path to true happiness isn't always smooth. Shortly after we exchanged vows, I realized that my fairy tale was beginning to unravel. The first signs of trouble were subtle, like a slow leak in a tire that gradually worsens until you're stranded on the side of the road. The culprit? James's mother, Martha. Martha, a woman in her mid-50s, raised James on her own and had always been fiercely protective of him. I had seen this dynamic during our dating years. She often called him several times a day, insisting on knowing his whereabouts and opinions on everything. I had assumed it was just a quirky part of their relationship, something I could work around. After all, love is about compromise, right? But once we were married, her interference turned into something much more invasive. Almost immediately, Martha began criticizing my choices, everything from the way I decorated our home to the meals I prepared. I remember one particular instance when she visited unannounced and found me experimenting with a new recipe. "What are you cooking, Lisa?" "That looks awful," she said with a disdainful look on her face, as if she were inspecting a science experiment gone wrong. "Just trying a new pasta dish, Martha," I replied, trying to keep my voice calm. "Isn't it a bit too rich?" "You should stick to the basics," she retorted, shaking her head. I felt my cheeks flush with embarrassment, but I tried to brush it off. "I thought she means well." I kept reminding myself that she was just trying to help, even when it felt like she was tearing me down. As weeks turned into months, her visits became more frequent and less welcome. She would drop by without calling, using a spare key that I didn't even know she had. I would walk into our living room, only to find her rearranging the furniture as if it were her own home. "This will give the space a better flow," she would say, waving her hand dismissively when I expressed my hesitations. The tension between Martha and me grew, and James seemed oblivious. Whenever I would try to bring it up, he would shrug it off, saying things like, "You know how my mom is. Just try to be patient." It was infuriating. How could he not see how her behavior was affecting me? I began to feel isolated, trapped in a situation where my voice was drowned out by his mother's constant interference. The love I felt for James started to fade under the weight of frustration and hurt. Then, one day, James suggested we go on a honeymoon to Hawaii, a chance to reconnect and escape the chaos. I felt a wave of relief wash over me. Finally, a break for Martha. However, that relief was short-lived when Martha insisted on joining us. "James, I don't think that's a good idea," I said, trying to mask my panic. But James, for the first time, stood his ground. "Mom, it's not a family trip. It's our honeymoon, just Lisa and me." I was stunned. This was the first time I saw him assert himself against his mother, and it filled me with hope. Maybe there was a chance for us after all. When we returned from the trip, everything seemed to be in place. James and I had rekindled our romance, and I was excited to return home. But when I opened the door to our bedroom, my heart dropped. Our room was a disaster zone. Clothes were thrown everywhere, jewelry drawers were broken, and my precious diamond necklace, a wedding gift from my mother worth $25,000, was missing. "James, come here," I screamed, my voice shaking. "What's wrong?" he asked, rushing into the room. "I can't find my necklace. Look at this mess. What happened here?" I gestured wildly at the chaos. James's face paled as he surveyed the room.
"I don't know."
"This is so strange," he muttered, confusion and concern etched across his face. Desperate, I turned to him. "Do you think it could be?" "No, Lisa. I can't believe my mother would do something like this," he interrupted, his tone defensive. I swallowed hard, feeling a knot form in my stomach. But deep down, the suspicion crept in. I couldn't shake the feeling that Martha was somehow involved. I needed to find answers. That night, sleep eluded me as I tossed and turned, haunted by the disarray of our bedroom and the absence of my cherished necklace. I couldn't understand how Martha could betray me like this. The woman who I thought was merely overbearing had transformed into someone I feared. The following day, I decided to take action. I visited several jewelry stores in the area, searching for any sign of my necklace. After hours of looking and nearly giving up hope, I entered a small shop tucked away in a corner of the city. As I scanned the displays, my heart stopped. There it was, my diamond necklace gleaming under the glass. "Excuse me," I called the shopkeeper over. "Can I see that necklace, please?" When I held it in my hands, it felt like the ground beneath me shifted. I needed to know who had sold it. "Can you show me the CCTV footage from when this necklace came in?" I asked, my voice steady despite the chaos in my mind. The shopkeeper obliged, and as I watched the footage, my heart sank. There, clearly on the screen, was Martha, my mother-in-law, handing over my precious necklace. I felt a whirlwind of emotions: betrayal, anger, and disbelief. Furious, I rushed home, ready to confront her. But as I approached the door, I found Martha waiting for me, arms crossed and a smug smile on her face. "What are you doing here, Lisa? You look like you've seen a ghost," she sneered. "Don't play games with me, Martha." "I know what you did," I snapped, my heart pounding. Her smile faltered for a moment, and in that split second, I felt a surge of confidence. I had the proof, but what happened next would change everything. I was about to confront the woman who had wreaked havoc in my life. I just didn't know how deep the betrayal would run. Standing at the doorstep, I took a deep breath, trying to gather my thoughts. Martha's presence was suffocating, and I felt the anger bubbling inside me like a volcano ready to erupt. I had never imagined confronting my mother-in-law would feel like this, like stepping into a battlefield where the stakes were so high. "Lisa, why are you staring at me like that? If you have something to say, just say it," Martha said, her tone dripping with mockery. "Enough with the games, Martha. I know you sold my diamond necklace." I blurted out, my voice shaking with a mix of rage and disbelief. "I saw you on the security footage at the jewelry store." Her expression changed instantaneously. The smugness vanished, replaced by a flicker of anger. "How dare you accuse me of stealing?" she retorted, her voice rising. "You've always had a wild imagination, haven't you?" "I'm not imagining anything. You took something that doesn't belong to you, and it's time you admit it." I shot back, stepping closer to her, unwilling to let her intimidation tactics work on me this time. Martha's eyes narrowed as she took a step forward, invading my personal space. "You think you can come into my house and throw accusations at me? You're just jealous that I raised James alone and that he still cares for me. You'll never be as important as his mother," she spat, her voice full of venom. "Being his wife doesn't mean I'm less important. You need to understand that I'm part of this family too, but you act like I'm just an inconvenience," I replied, my heart racing. I felt an overwhelming need to defend myself, to make her see that I was not going to back down this time. Suddenly, James walked through the door, a bag of groceries in hand. The moment he saw us standing there, tension thick in the air, he dropped the bag and rushed over. "What's going on? Why does it look like you two are about to kill each other?" "Martha has been lying to me, James. I know she sold my necklace, and I'm done pretending everything is fine," I said, my voice rising. I turned to him, desperate for support. "You need to believe me. I have proof." James looked between us, confusion etched on his face. "Mom, is this true?" he asked, his tone wavering.
"I didn't do anything."
"Lisa is just trying to stir up trouble because she can't handle the fact that I'm still in your life," Martha interjected, throwing her hands up defensively. James's gaze shifted from his mother to me, and I could see the turmoil in his eyes. "I need to hear this from both of you. What exactly happened?" he asked, trying to mediate. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding. "I found the necklace in a pawn shop, James. I have the footage." Your mother sold it while we were on our honeymoon, I explained, the words rushing out of me. James turned to Martha, who was now visibly sweating, her composure cracking. Is that true? Did you sell Lisa's necklace?
I
borrowed it, she stammered, trying to twist the narrative. I thought it was just lying around. I didn't mean to cause any trouble. Borrowed? It's not borrowing if you sell it, I shouted, my frustration boiling over. You stole it. You knew how much it meant to me. Stop yelling, both of you, James shouted, his voice echoing in the small entryway. This is not helping. Mom, why would you do something like this? It was a mistake. Martha snapped, her defensive nature kicking in. I thought it was just an old piece of jewelry, something that was forgotten. I didn't know it was special to her. Enough of your excuses, I exclaimed. You've done nothing but disrespect me since day one. I've tried to be patient, but this is crossing a line. James's silence was deafening. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, waiting for him to pull me back or let me fall. I can't believe this, James finally said, looking defeated. Mom, you have to understand what you did is unacceptable. We need to figure out how to fix this. Fix this? How can we fix this when she's made it clear she doesn't trust me? I said, pointing at Martha. I'm done being the one who has to compromise. You need to make a choice, James. Martha's eyes flashed with anger as she took a step back, her expression darkening. You think you can come into our family and make demands? You're nothing without my son. That statement stung like a slap to the face, and I felt tears prick my eyes. I am not nothing. I am his wife, and I deserve your respect. James looked between us, visibly torn. I need time to think, he finally said, his voice low. I can't deal with this right now. With that, he turned and walked away, leaving me alone with Martha. The tension hung in the air, thick and suffocating. I felt a sense of despair wash over me, knowing that things had reached a breaking point. Your husband is weak, Lisa, Martha sneered, her voice dripping with disdain. You'll never win this fight. I will always be his mother. In that moment, I knew I couldn't stay in this toxic environment any longer. I felt like a puppet on strings, and it was time to cut them. I needed to reclaim my life, my identity, and my dignity. With that thought, I turned on my heel and walked out, determined to find a way to seek justice for the betrayal I had suffered. Leaving James and Martha in that heated moment was one of the hardest things I had ever done. I felt like I was walking away from my marriage, but I knew that staying would only lead to more heartache. As I drove back to my mother's house, my heart raced with a mix of fear and determination. I couldn't let Martha's betrayal go unpunished. When I arrived, my mother was in the kitchen, humming to herself as she prepared dinner. The smell of her famous lasagna filled the air, and for a brief moment, I felt comforted. But the weight of my troubles came crashing back as I recounted the events of the day. Oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry you're going through this, my mother said, her eyes filled with concern. You deserve so much better. I need to do something about it, Mom. I can't just let her get away with this, I replied, my voice firm. I'm going to report her to the police. My mother's face reflected my own determination. If that's what you think is best, then I support you. We'll gather any evidence you need. That night, we pored over the footage from the jewelry store and made a list of everything that had happened. I documented my conversations with James, highlighting how dismissive he had been about Martha's behavior. I felt empowered, like I was taking back control over my life. The next day, I contacted the local police department and scheduled an appointment to report the theft. As I prepared for my meeting, I felt a whirlwind of emotions. Nervousness, anger, but also a sense of purpose. I was no longer the quiet wife being pushed around. I was ready to stand up for myself. When I arrived at the station, I was greeted by an officer who took me into a small room to discuss my case. I showed him the footage of Martha selling the necklace and explained the situation. The officer listened intently, nodding along as I spoke. This is a serious matter, Ms. Miller. Theft is not something we take lightly. We'll need to investigate further, but I assure you that we will do everything we can to help you, he said, his tone reassuring. Relief washed over me as I left the station. I had taken the first step toward justice, and I felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I was determined to see this through, no matter how hard it might be. Over the next few days, the police worked diligently on my case, collecting evidence and reaching out to pawn shops in the area. They were able to confirm the sale of my necklace and also uncovered additional details that pointed to Martha's history of questionable behavior. One afternoon, as I was sitting at my mother's kitchen table, my phone rang. It was the officer I had spoken to earlier. "Ms. Miller, we've gathered enough evidence to move forward with an arrest. Would you like to be present when we take your mother-in-law into custody?" he asked. I hesitated for a moment, the gravity of the situation hitting me. But then I remembered how much Martha had hurt me, how she had invaded my life and disrespected my marriage. "Yes, I want to be there," I replied, my voice steady. The following day, I drove to the location where they had planned to arrest Martha. My heart raced as I waited, anxiety bubbling beneath the surface. I couldn't believe it had come to this. My mother-in-law, the woman who was supposed to support me, was about to face the consequences of her actions. When the police arrived, they approached Martha as she was leaving her house, her usual air of arrogance stripped away. I watched from a distance, my heart pounding in my chest. "Martha Ellen, you are under arrest for theft," the officer announced, and I felt a surge of triumph rush through me. This was justice. As they handcuffed her and led her away, I stood there, watching her world crumble. I realized that I was finally free from the chains that had bound me, and in that moment, I felt empowered. I was no longer the victim. I was a survivor, ready to reclaim my life. The day Martha was arrested marked a pivotal moment in my life. I had faced her down and taken control of my own narrative. After the police took her away, I felt a strange mix of emotions: relief, sadness, and an undeniable sense of empowerment. I knew that I had done the right thing, but the reality of the situation weighed heavily on my heart. In the days that followed, I found myself in a whirlwind of legal processes. Martha's arrest led to charges of theft, and I learned that she would likely face serious consequences for her actions. I felt a sense of closure starting to form, but I also had to confront the fact that my marriage with James was hanging by a thread. James reached out to me multiple times, pleading for a chance to talk. I was hesitant, but knew we needed to address the elephant in the room. One evening, we met at a coffee shop halfway between our homes. As I walked in, I felt a mixture of hope and dread. Could we salvage our relationship, or had too much damage been done? "Lisa, I'm so glad you agreed to meet," James said, his voice shaky as he sat down across from me. "I've been sick about you." "I've been worried about you too, James," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. "But we need to talk about everything that's happened. You need to understand how hurtful your mother's actions were and how your support, or lack thereof, affected me." He nodded, looking down at his coffee. "I know. I can't believe she would do something like that. I should have stood up for you sooner. I'm sorry." "Sorry isn't enough, James. Your mother has caused irreparable harm," I said, my voice rising slightly. "I've lost trust in both of you. You need to decide whose side you're on." "I'm on your side, Lisa." "I love you," he exclaimed, desperation creeping into his voice. "Then you need to prove it." "I can't continue in a marriage where I feel like a second-class citizen," I replied, trying to keep my emotions in check. "You need to choose between me and her." We talked for hours, but it was clear that the rift between us was too wide. Although he professed his love for me, I couldn't shake the feeling that his loyalty to his mother would always come first. As we parted ways that evening, I knew I had made my decision. The following week, I filed for divorce. It was painful, but I felt lighter, as if I had shed a weight I had been carrying for far too long. Martha's court date was set for a few weeks later. When the day arrived, I felt a mix of anxiety and anticipation as I entered the courtroom. I wanted to see justice served, to show Martha that her actions had consequences. When she walked in, she looked older, more haggard than I had ever seen her. It was a stark reminder of how far things had fallen. The proceedings were swift. The evidence was clear, and it didn't take long for the judge to issue a verdict. Martha was sentenced to community service and ordered to pay restitution for the necklace, along with additional fines totaling $25,000. As the gavel struck, I felt a surge of vindication. This was justice, and I had finally reclaimed my life. With the divorce finalized shortly after and Martha's fate sealed, I began to embrace my newfound freedom. I focused on my career, pouring my energy into projects that inspired me. I took up new hobbies, explored the city, and spent quality time with my mother, who had been my rock throughout this tumultuous journey. In the months that followed, I learned to cherish my independence. I discovered my strength in solitude and began to rebuild my life on my terms. I reflected on the lessons I had learned about trust, respect, and the importance of standing up for myself. As I sat in my apartment one evening, sipping a glass of wine and watching the sunset over the city skyline, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I was no longer bound by the toxicity of my past. I had turned the page and was ready to embrace a bright new chapter filled with hope and possibilities. I had faced betrayal and fought for justice, and now I was finally free. My cruel sister-in-law ruined my wedding dress with scissors, and I was shocked. I secretly recorded her and told my husband, but he took no action and favored his sister. I was filled with anger as I played the recording on the big screen during the wedding event. She was furious and slapped me hard across the face. I decided to take revenge and give her a shocking surprise by throwing her out of the event. My name is Amelia, and I want to share my journey. A journey filled with love, betrayal, and ultimately empowerment. It all began in Dallas, Texas, where I was just an ordinary 30-year-old office administrator, navigating the daily grind of work while searching for a spark in my life. I never imagined that joining a gym would change everything for me. It was a sunny morning when I walked into Liam's gym for the first time. I was nervous. I had never been the athletic type, and the sight of well-toned bodies working out was intimidating. But I was determined to get fit and feel good about myself. Little did I know that this place would introduce me to Liam, the gym owner, who would become the love of my life. Liam was 32, dedicated to fitness, and had a magnetic personality. He had dark hair, deep brown eyes, and a smile that could light up a room. On my first day, I stumbled through a workout, feeling awkward and out of place. That's when Liam noticed me. "Hey there." "First time?" he asked, his voice warm and encouraging. I nodded, trying to catch my breath. "Yeah, I'm just trying to get into it." "Well, I can show you some basics if you'd like," he offered. And just like that, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. Over the next year, Liam and I spent countless hours together in the gym. He became my personal trainer, guiding me through workouts, offering tips, and cheering me on. As I grew stronger, so did my feelings for him. He was supportive, kind, and incredibly easy to talk to. One afternoon, as we finished a particularly tough session, Liam looked at me with a sparkle in his eyes. "You've come a long way, Amelia. I'm proud of you." "Thanks, Liam. I couldn't have done it without your help," I replied, feeling a rush of gratitude. That day, we shared a lingering glance that shifted everything. We went for coffee afterward, and I learned about his life. Liam spoke of his dreams of expanding his gym and his passion for fitness. I told him about my job, my hopes, and my struggles. It felt like we had known each other forever. As our friendship blossomed into something deeper, we began dating. Liam was not just my trainer anymore. He was my partner, my confidant. We laughed, shared meals, and spent weekends exploring the city. It was blissful, and for the first time, I felt truly happy. However, there was one thing that cast a shadow over our relationship: Liam's younger sister, Sophia. At 28, she was beautiful and charismatic, but also controlling and demanding. Sophia had always been the star of the family, and I quickly learned she had a specific idea of who Liam should marry. She believed he needed to elevate his status by marrying someone from a wealthy family, and in her eyes, I was not that person. The tension between us was palpable. Sophia would drop by unexpectedly, often at the worst times, just to remind me of my shortcomings. I could sense her disapproval, and it made me uneasy. One evening, as Liam and I were enjoying a quiet dinner at my apartment, the doorbell rang. "Amelia, can you get that?" Liam asked, looking up from his plate. "Sure," I replied, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach as I opened the door to find Sophia standing there, arms crossed and a judgmental expression on her face. "Hi, Liam. I hope I'm not interrupting anything important," she said with a saccharine smile, though her tone betrayed her. Liam sighed, looking at me apologetically. "Sophia, maybe you could give us some time?" "Oh, don't mind me. I just came to see how my brother was doing," she replied, stepping inside uninvited. As she settled onto the couch, I could feel my heart racing. It was hard to enjoy our evening when I felt her eyes scrutinizing me. She launched into a discussion about her plans for a charity event, constantly reminding Liam of the types of people he should be mingling with. "Honestly, Liam, you should consider more high-profile connections. You're running a gym now. You need to be in those circles," Sophia said, her voice dripping with superiority. I tried to stay composed, but her words stung. "I believe in building genuine connections, Sophia," Liam replied, irritation creeping into his voice. "Amelia and I are happy, and that's what matters," Sophia huffed, rolling her eyes. "Sure, but you could do better." Her words hung in the air, heavy and uncomfortable. I glanced at Liam, who looked equally frustrated. After a few more minutes of back and forth, Sophia finally left, but the damage was done. "I'm sorry you had to deal with that," Liam said, pulling me into a hug. "I'll talk to her." "No, Liam, please don't," I said quickly. "I don't want to create more tension. I just want to focus on us." But deep down, I felt the unease growing. I wanted to be accepted by Liam's family, but it seemed impossible with Sophia around. As our wedding day approached, the excitement was overshadowed by my anxiety about Sophia's behavior. Liam reassured me, "I'll handle Sophia, I promise. Don't let her get to you." I wanted to believe him, but the nagging worry lingered. Would she try to sabotage our big day? Little did I know that my fears were about to become a reality, and the drama was only just beginning. The day of my wedding finally arrived, and I could hardly contain my excitement. I had spent months planning every detail, from the flowers to the cake, envisioning the moment I would walk down the aisle toward Liam. He was waiting for me, and nothing could overshadow the love we shared. I was determined to focus on the happiness that awaited us. The ceremony took place in a charming little chapel in Dallas, decorated with soft white flowers and twinkling fairy lights. My heart raced as I donned my wedding dress, a beautiful gown that hugged my curves perfectly, making me feel like a princess. My best friend, Julia, stood beside me, her eyes gleaming with joy. "You look incredible, Amelia," she exclaimed as she adjusted my veil. "Liam is going to be blown away."
Thank you.
"I just hope Sophia behaves," I said, my voice tinged with anxiety. Julia frowned slightly. "Just ignore her. Today is about you and Liam." As I stepped into the chapel, the sound of soft music filled the air, and I took a deep breath, soaking in the moment. When I finally saw Liam standing at the altar, my worries began to fade. He looked handsome in his tailored suit, his eyes sparkling with love. The moment we locked eyes, it felt as if the world around us disappeared. The ceremony was beautiful, filled with laughter, heartfelt vows, and the promise of a lifetime together. But as I glanced at the pews, I spotted Sophia sitting with a scowl on her face, arms crossed tightly over her chest. I tried to push aside the unease. This was our day, and nothing would ruin it. After the ceremony, we moved to the reception venue, a lovely banquet hall adorned with flowers and sparkling lights. Guests mingled, laughter echoed, and the atmosphere was joyous. Liam and I danced, lost in each other's arms, and I felt like the luckiest woman alive. Then everything changed. I had just stepped away to chat with some friends when I caught sight of Sophia near the bridal suite. She was in there, and my heart sank as I noticed she was holding something. Curiosity got the better of me, and I quietly approached the door, peeking inside. To my horror, I saw her with scissors in hand, snipping away at my wedding dress that was hung nearby.
No.
"What are you doing?" I gasped, my heart racing as I stepped into the room. Sophia turned, wide-eyed, the scissors clattering to the floor. Amelia.
I
I was just fixing it, she stammered, her smile feigning innocence. Fixing it? You're ruining it. I shouted, grabbing my phone to record the moment. I knew I had to document this betrayal. Stay on my business, Amelia. You don't belong here, she snapped, her voice dripping with disdain. I felt a mix of shock and anger boiling inside me. You can't be serious. This is my wedding day, and you're trying to ruin it. How low can you go? Before she could respond, I turned and rushed out of the suite, shaking with adrenaline. I found Liam, who was speaking with guests, and pulled him aside. Liam, you won't believe what Sophia just did, I said, breathless. What happened? He asked, concern etched on his face. She was cutting my wedding dress, I exclaimed, showing him the recording. He looked at the video, his expression shifting from confusion to anger. I can't believe this. I'm going to talk to her. No, please don't, I pleaded. I don't want to escalate things. Let's just focus on the wedding. But I could see the fire in Liam's eyes, and I knew this wouldn't be over. As we returned to the festivities, I tried to shake off the incident, but the weight of Sophia's actions lingered. As the night wore on, we danced, laughed, and celebrated with our loved ones. I tried to push aside my worries, but deep down, I knew this wouldn't be the last I heard from Sophia. The truth was, I had a growing sense that her actions were rooted in something deeper than mere jealousy. The reception continued in full swing, but my heart was heavy. As the last dance approached, I couldn't shake the feeling that Sophia would find a way to ruin this night for us, and I was determined to be ready. I would not let her control my happiness any longer. Little did I know that the night was far from over, and a shocking revelation awaited just around the corner. The celebration at our wedding reception was in full swing, with laughter and music echoing throughout the hall. As the last dance drew near, I tried to put Sophia's earlier actions behind me. Liam held me close, spinning me around the dance floor, and for a moment, I felt like nothing could ruin our happiness. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. As we wrapped up our final dance, I scanned the room for Sophia. I hadn't seen her since our confrontation in the bridal suite, and I felt a knot of anxiety forming in my stomach. What if she was plotting something else? Just then, I spotted her in a corner, her arms crossed tightly, her face a mask of anger. Liam, I need to talk to you, I said, pulling him away from the crowd. What's wrong? He asked, concern etched on his face. I'm worried about Sophia. I think she's up to something, I confessed, glancing back to see if she was watching us. Liam sighed, frustration evident in his voice. She's always up to something. Just try to ignore her, Amelia. It's our day. But I couldn't ignore the feeling that she wouldn't let this go. As the night continued, the joyous atmosphere began to wane. Guests were starting to filter out, and I was exhausted from pretending that everything was perfect. I needed to find out what Sophia was planning. Suddenly, the music stopped, and the room fell silent as Sophia took center stage, a microphone in hand. Can I have everyone's attention, please? She called out, her voice carrying across the room. I felt my heart race. What was she doing? Amelia, she began, her tone sweet but laced with something darker. I think it's only fair that everyone knows the truth about you. I exchanged a worried glance with Liam. What is she talking about? He muttered under his breath. Amelia may look like the perfect bride, but I have something to share that might change your minds about her, Sophia continued, her voice dripping with insincerity. I felt a wave of dread wash over me. What could she possibly say? I caught her last week at the gym, trying to flirt with my boyfriend, Ethan, Sophia announced, gesturing dramatically to where Ethan stood, his expression caught between confusion and concern. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I could feel the heat rising to my cheeks, a mix of anger and humiliation. That's a lie, I shouted, my voice trembling. Ethan and I have never flirted. You're just trying to ruin my wedding day. Sophia smirked, clearly enjoying the attention. Oh, really? Then what do you call this? She pulled out her phone and started playing a video. I recognized the video immediately. It was a clip of me speaking with Ethan at the gym. We were discussing fitness goals, and while we were laughing and joking, it had been completely innocent. But Sophia had edited the video, splicing together moments to make it look as if I was flirting. This is a recording of her trying to win him over. Looks pretty suspicious, doesn't it? Sophia declared, her voice full of false sincerity. The crowd murmured, and I felt the weight of their stares, judging me. My heart pounded in my chest. I was on the brink of losing everything I had worked for. Everyone knows Ethan and I are meant to be together. Amelia is just trying to steal him from me, Sophia continued, her manipulation becoming more evident. Liam stepped forward, his face a mask of fury. This is ridiculous, Sophia. Amelia would never do something like that. You're trying to ruin her wedding. Sophia's smile faded, replaced by a look of irritation. Oh, please, Liam. Wake up. Your wife is a fraud, and you're too blinded by love to see it. I felt the tears brimming in my eyes as I looked at Liam, desperate for him to believe me. I didn't do anything wrong, Liam. You have to trust me. Sophia smirked, sensing the shift in the room. You see? Even now, she's playing the victim. Just look at her. Before I could respond, Sophia lunged toward me, and in a fit of rage, she slapped me across the face. The sting took my breath away, and gasps filled the room. For a moment, everything froze. Then, to my surprise, Liam stepped in between us, his voice low and angry. That's enough, Sophia.
You need to stop this.
You are out of line. Sophia's eyes widened in shock as she realized she had crossed a line. You're siding with her? After everything I've done for you? Enough. Liam shouted, his voice echoing in the now silent hall. Amelia is my wife, and I won't let you treat her this way. You need to leave. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. Was Liam really defending me against his sister? The tension in the air was electric, and I felt a mix of relief and confusion. Sophia's face turned bright red with anger and humiliation. You'll regret this, Liam. You'll see. With that, she stormed out of the reception, leaving a trail of whispers behind her. The guests slowly resumed their conversations, but the mood had shifted. I felt exposed, standing in the middle of a crowd that had just witnessed my humiliation. Liam turned to me, concern etched on his face. Are you okay? I think so, I said, my voice shaky. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. I had to confront Sophia once and for all, and I was ready to reclaim my dignity. Little did I know, the real battle was just beginning, and I had a plan brewing in the back of my mind that would turn the tables on Sophia once and for all. After the chaos of the reception, Liam and I were left reeling from the events that had just unfolded. I could see the conflict swirling in his eyes. Amelia, I'm so sorry you had to go through that. I never expected Sophia to take it this far, he said, pulling me into a tight embrace. It's okay, I whispered, trying to steady my racing heart. But we can't let her get away with this. She needs to know that her actions have consequences. As the evening wound down, we retreated to our hotel room, still buzzing from the emotions of the day. I've been thinking, I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. I want to confront Sophia once and for all. She needs to see the truth of her actions, and I want to expose her for what she really is. Liam looked hesitant. Amelia, I don't want you to put yourself in harm's way. She can be unpredictable. I know, I replied firmly. But she can't keep controlling our lives. I need to stand up for myself, for us. The next day, I gathered the courage to approach Sophia. I arranged to meet her at a cafe, knowing she would want to discuss what had happened. As I walked in, I spotted her sitting at a corner table, her expression a mix of anger and defiance. Amelia, she said, her voice laced with disdain. What do you want? Sophia, I wanted to talk, I began, trying to keep my tone calm. What you did at the wedding was unacceptable. You can't just lie about me and expect there to be no consequences. She rolled her eyes, clearly unfazed. Oh, please. You think you can come here and lecture me? You're just a nobody trying to marry my brother. I felt the heat rise in my cheeks but pressed on. You know, I have something that might change your mind about me. What are you talking about? She shot back, crossing her arms. I pulled out my phone and hit play on the video I had recorded of her cutting my wedding dress. The audio filled the cafe, and her eyes widened in disbelief as she heard her own voice. "This isn't what you think," she sputtered, but I could see the panic rising in her expression as other patrons began to notice the commotion. "Oh, really? Because it sounds like you were trying to sabotage my wedding," I retorted, my heart racing as I watched her unravel. The cafe was buzzing with whispers now. Sophia's face turned bright red, and she shot up from her seat. You can't do this," she shouted, her voice trembling with rage. "I just did," I replied, feeling a surge of empowerment wash over me. "It's time for everyone to see the truth about you." As people began to approach Sophia, demanding explanations, her facade crumbled. "You'll regret this, Amelia. I'll ruin you," she screamed as she stormed out of the cafe, leaving a trail of shocked faces behind her. In that moment, I felt an overwhelming sense of relief. I had finally stood up for myself and exposed her for the controlling sister she had been all along. The weight that had been pressing on my shoulders lifted, and I knew that Liam and I could finally move forward without her shadow looming over us. When I returned home, Liam was waiting for me with a worried expression. "Did it go well?" he asked, his eyes searching mine. I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. "It went better than I could have imagined. Sophia's true colors are finally out in the open." His face softened with relief. "I'm proud of you, Amelia. You handled it like a champ." As the days turned into weeks, I felt a newfound freedom. Sophia tried to reach out, but I ignored her calls, focused on building my life with Liam. We moved to a new apartment, far away from the drama, where we could start fresh. In the end, I learned that standing up for myself was the most empowering thing I could do. I reclaimed my dignity and happiness, and with Liam by my side, I was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, together. Our love had survived the storm, and I knew we were stronger for it. Sophia may have tried to tear us apart, but in the end, it only brought Liam and me closer, and I was grateful for that. And so, as I close this chapter of my life, I reflect on the lessons learned about love, loyalty, and the strength it takes to stand up against betrayal. I may have been pushed to my limits, but I emerged victorious, ready for whatever the future holds.